Hello, hello. I am Zoe Clark, and you are watching live coverage of the Mackinac Policy Conference. Launched at Michigan Central in February and playing off of Henry Louis Gates' Great Migrations documentary series, Destination Detroit is Detroit PBS's contribution to America 250. For the next year and beyond, Detroit PBS will be creating an oral history archive of the people who came to Detroit and Southeast Michigan hoping to find the American dream. As the quintessential 20th century American city, Detroit and the surrounding region was built on those who moved to Detroit, all of whom were looking for opportunity, whether it be in the auto industry in the early 20th century, the arsenal of democracy during World War II, or from other parts of the world. Detroit as we know it today is defined by the people who came here to call Southeast Michigan home.
In those days, a lot of their friends from the South settled in the same neighborhood.
My family is actually from Jamaica, and I am the first person in the city of Detroit.
Well, my family's originally from Honduras. I was born there, but I was brought up in Detroit.
Detroit is more than a city. It's a story. It's America's story. And Detroit's story is intertwined throughout every one of us. Hard workers, creative thinkers, and adventurous spirits. 4 million people, one story. From members of tribal lands who still call this land home, to the earliest days of our young country, those who saw opportunity, shaped lands, formed neighborhoods, and drove Detroit to be the automotive capital of the world. And today, we are a city and a region, vibrant and dynamic, poised to meet the next 250 years. Detroit is opportunity. Detroit is resilience. Detroit is transformation. Detroit is a quintessential American city. No matter how the spirit of Detroit flows through your veins, you have a story to tell. Destination Detroit tells this evolving story, connecting the past, the present, and the future through community voices, powerful storytelling, live discussions, and immersive experiences.
When I was 8 years old, our family got sponsored from a refugee camp in Thailand.
My mother came up, she was born in Forsyth, Georgia.
They were from, southern Illinois and western Kentucky.
And in recognition of America 250, Destination Detroit honors this central chapter in our nation's history, because this story of us should be told by us. This is your story, our story. The story of Detroit. Join us and help tell America's story.
Joining me now to talk about the Destination Detroit project is Ed Moore, Vice President of Content at Detroit PBS. And our partners in the project, Elana Rugh, President and CEO of the Detroit Historical Museum, and Neil Barclay, President and CEO of the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History. Hello, you three. It's so good to have you here at the table.
Good to see you, Zoe.
Ed, I want to start with you.
Okay.
Tell us about Destination Detroit and just how the project and this partnership developed.
Well, I mean, as your intro stated, it really kind of got kicked off from the Henry Louis Gates' Great Migrations documentary series. Yeah. And we thought, what better way to tell the story of Detroit and what better way to honor what is coming up as America 250, our 250th anniversary, than to tell Detroit's story and the story of Southeast Michigan through the lens of all the people that came here, all looking for a better life, all looking to, move up that ladder, right? Yeah. And so we enlisted the aid of our friends from the Detroit Historical Museum, my former home, where my teams were located, and to Charles Wright to help us, pull all these people. This is an ambitious undertaking, so we need partners, we need help.
Elana, the Detroit Historical Museum has long preserved, stories of the people who built Detroit. As we think about Detroit as a destination for those still seeking the American dream, how does the museum's work help us understand the waves of migration that shape the city and why these, personal histories are so important as we think about America at 250?
Sure. No, absolutely. Well, the Detroit Historical Society's mission is to tell Detroit stories and why they matter. And, core to that is how people came to be here at all through immigration and migration. And those stories through oral histories are woven into the fabric of every single exhibit that we put together. And our mission is also not to just tell some of the stories, but all of the stories of people from every background, which, as you said, huge undertaking. It doesn't matter where you came from. If you're here in Detroit, it was your hard work and your grit, everything that goes into telling the quintessential Detroit story that has become, such a part of the fabric of what we are doing. So being part of this project, of course, we were really honored and excited to participate every time we get to work with Ed. We love that. But this is who we are. We were born for this moment. Our oral historians, are a group of wicked smart people who this is their life's work. And we're just really excited to be able to participate and take on that part of the work.
Yeah. Neil, I'm thinking a lot about how the story of Detroit is just simply inseparable from the story of Black migration, right? And the generations of African Americans who helped shape the city. How is the Wright Museum helping to preserve and elevate those stories? And sort of what do you see those stories playing in a broader understanding of Detroit's legacy?
So the Wright Museum, founded now 60 years ago, right? Really traces not just Detroit's history, but the history of African Americans in the United States. And that history is very much so rooted in Detroit. So if you look at the period from 1910 to 1930, at 1910, 6,000 people live in Detroit. In 1930, 120,000 people, primarily African Americans, are living in the city of Detroit, along with several immigrants from other cultures, as we know, right? So the Wright Museum tries to take those stories, and again from a lived perspective, not just something you would read in a book or someone's analysis of the period, but really listens to people who actually were here then, not 1910, but who have lived in the city, worked in the city, and elevates those stories so that we have a complete perspective, I think, of what it meant to be in Detroit, to be from Detroit, and the impact that Detroit has had on the United States.
Well, and Neil, as we look to the celebration of 250, I'm curious about then, how do we make sure that Black Detroiters remain at the central part of the conversation about the city and our national identity?
Yeah. What's interesting about what's happening in our politics in particular right now is that the stories of African Americans are really animated in the present moment. The role that we have played in securing voting rights, in securing citizenship, rooted in African American civil rights movements, right? And so as we look at what's happening today, we can trace those histories back to African American, primarily African American women, frankly, who really first and foremost secured citizenship for what was then males, right? They weren't even included, but they worked very hard to get citizenship. You then come to the 15th Amendment where race is outlawed. Still, women are not yet at the table, right? And so it's not until the ERA Amendment, again, women at the front, Detroiters, who really pushed those amendments through. And so we say that African American history is really American history.
American history.
Right? It's really the roots of American democracy.
Yeah. Elana, as Detroit continues to evolve, how does the Historical Museum strike a balance between honoring the city's past migrations and then really adapting to new communities who are now helping to shape its future?
Right. Well, people think of museums oftentimes, Zoe, as sort of dusty places where you tell only stories of the past.
Right.
What people don't get is that every day we are collecting stories of history as it's being made today, right, by Detroiters from all backgrounds who came here for whatever reason. And so, contemporary collecting, that's what we're doing to ensure that 100 years from now, people will be able to come to the museums and read stories about us, about, the history that we made during this time. And it's really an exciting part of the work.
And I'm going to let you end, but we've got just about 20 seconds.
That's all right.
So this is hard.
Okay.
But is there one story or narrative that has really stood out for you so far as you have listened to these stories so far?
The thing is, it's like when you tell stories about like immigration and migration and people going somewhere, it seems like there is a lot of struggle there. They're coming from places that maybe weren't so welcoming. but the common thread is they came to Detroit for a better life.
Right.
And that's what we should remember about Detroit and Southeast Michigan is people came here to improve themselves, to improve their situation. So that's what made Detroit.
And we're going to continue to get to hear those stories because of Ed and Elana and Neil. Thank you for your time in this partnership. I'm really looking forward to watching it.
Thank you.
And we are going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.